the traditional elements of the music, which was the positivity, the enrichment, the message, what I would call the majestic sound of sound system culture was something which attracted me. The fact that you could go to a dance and in the course of an evening your soul and spirit would be lifted. It wasn't in those days a negative place to be, it was a positive place to be. Sadly, in more recent years, certain elements of sound system culture have chosen to essentially promote a negative way of life in terms of some of the music that's being played, because by some of the music that's being made in Jamaica. So there's the positive aspects of sound system culture and the negative aspects. The negative aspects are a reflection of the negativity within certain communities, particularly within the youth in terms of their attitude to each other. But it can't be about love, it's got to be about hate, it can't be about unity, it's got to be about separation, it's got to be about tribal war, and that we are defend. And that was the essence of this music, that it was about people preaching a positive message. I mean, if you wanted to feel a positive spirit, all you have to do is walk around the fairground today, the site of this amazing festival, which is a gathering of brothers and sisters and like-minded souls who have been moved by this music over the years. Israel Libation. Linton Kwesi Johnson flew the Atlantic to be here. So did I. And there are people who are not here physically, but are here spiritually because of what this festival represents for the positive aspects of this music. And it was the positive aspects of this music which made it so universally recognized and acclaimed. Why did it have such an influence on Paul Simon? Why did the Beatles do Obla Di Obla Da? It wasn't just a crazy backbeat, it was a whole culture. And we know that without Rastafarianism we wouldn't have the music we have. The birth of that, the development of Rastafarianism and the influence of the music was incredibly powerful. So we're left now in a kind of slightly vacuous state with sound system culture. The whole concept of dub clashing and sound system clashing is frankly boiled down to the gravy. And I think if sound system culture is to continue with clashing, there would have to be a very, very basic, simple rule which would have to be introduced. That in the 1-for-1, there was to be no music played by dead artists. This would be the only way of giving hope to new young selectors with ideas, because it's not fair on them. They haven't got a hope in terms of securing dubs by people who are obviously no longer with us. Even if they get other artists to sing over their songs, they'll be mocked and teased for it. And I don't think it's fair. So I would say that if sound system clash culture was going to continue to come back on its feet again, it would need to introduce that element to level the playing field so that people could take part with their own positive ideas and original dub plates, but have some hope of getting to the 1-for-1 and playing in the 1-for-1. And in closing, I've always had strong feelings about sound system culture and about selectors. I think selectors should remember their place. They are not the most important people in the music chain. They are at the end of the music chain. They were never at the beginning. A selector is merely someone who plays something that has been made by a number of other people. So a selector should regard himself or herself as a privileged person to be given the opportunity to share the music with like-minded souls in an audience, because without the engineer, without the producer, without the musicians, without the singers, without the songwriters, and back in the day without the record pressing plants and so on, there were no records to play and DJs had nothing to do. So I think some DJs need to bear that in mind. I mean, we all need egos to be in this business, otherwise we wouldn't be. But a good dose of humility wouldn't hurt anyone. And I think that we should bear in mind that that's what made this music so majestic. The fact that personal comments about other selectors were unheard of. I remember years ago that somebody made a personal comment about Jah Shaka in a dance in 1979. And it was the talk of the street for months. The fact that they would dare to offend anyone. You have to remember that back in the day, you wouldn't dare play a dub that was played by Coxsone, that was known to be a Shaka dub. You wouldn't dare to play it before they played it or after they played it, because you get booed. You wouldn't play a Jaro dub because it was known to be a Jaro dub. So, but now anything goes. Like, oh, I'll listen to Rodigan's dub plate box, and I'll listen to, you know, Jaro's dub plate box, and I'll copy all those dubs, and I'll play them before they can play them, so they can't play them. That's pathetic. So I think we need to look seriously at what DJs are there to do and the purpose of their position. Not to play records for 20 seconds and scream all over them. Not to play the same records in the same order as other DJs play them in. Copycatting what other DJs have already prepared. To be positive, to be original, to be creative, to take risks. And this is the problem. DJs come into the dance, they play the same old tunes, they're not introducing any new music. If they do, they don't introduce it with confidence, they don't introduce it with clarity, they stumble through it sometimes, and I think that's unfortunate, you know. If you don't play new music, you don't champion new tunes, if you're not prepared to realize that you can't get a forward from every song, that you can't queue everything up on your laptop to the point where you get the forward. And that's what's happening now. You know, along with fake touring, you know. Sound says, oh, I'm on tour. Why? Well, actually, because I network with somebody in Tokyo who networks with somebody in England, who networks with, and he says, come to play in my town, and I'll come to play in your town. No one's heard of either of you, but you're building up a rep based on the fact that you're mates. So that whole kind of trying to get there without doing the groundwork, I think is unfortunate and unnecessary. And I just think that selectors should bear in mind the fact that this music came before them, and if we don't allow this music to breathe, as I say, well, I call it allowing the music to breathe, stop strangling the music, stop, you know, literally, the music is being strangled by selectors who are screaming all over it and playing it for 30 seconds. I mean, I find it almost impossible to go to a dance now when they start that nonsense. I'm like, why on earth would anyone want to pay money to come and listen to this bullshit? Why? Do you really think you're standing up there on stage, screaming and hollering and squawking like some strangled cat, and you're not saying anything, you're not doing anything? It's cheap forwards, you know, about gal and this and so on. So I'll stop my rant and leave it there.
Keep going.